I've seen a lot of calls for action, among these lawmakers saying that we shouldn't just be praying. One that I've seen on the right, actually, is calls for the FBI to institute a new class of domestic terrorism that involves trans ideology. Is that something that the administration would support?
I would have to check with the appropriate people on that.
And it appears that White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt did check in with the White House on that, because last week you just heard that senior reporter from the Daily Wire asking whether trans ideology should receive a terror designation. And it looks like now the White House is considering maybe banning trans people from being able to obtain guns, which makes me wonder, Cenk. How exactly would that work, right? When you have, let's say, transgender individuals like Blair White, who's very convincing, okay? Are you gonna do a genital test? Anyway, so here's what we know. Mary Margaret Olohan, who is the very reporter that you saw in that video, just reported today, breaking, the Justice Department is deliberating banning guns for transgenders as part of a range of options blocking mentally unstable individuals from committing acts of violence. The Daily Wire has learned, and an anonymous DOJ source also told the Daily Wire the following: individuals within the Justice Department are reviewing ways to ensure that mentally ill individuals suffering from gender dysphoria are unable to obtain firearms while they are unstable and unwell. And a DOJ spokesman would not comment on specific measures being considered, but said that a range of options is on the table. Now, do I think they're actually gonna try to go through with this? I mean, I don't know. It seems like another squirrel that the Trump administration is throwing at us, but just for the sake of this discussion, I wanna take this seriously, as if they're being serious about it and they're literally gonna go out of their way to discriminate against one tiny group of people in this country based on a handful of shootings that happened or were carried out by transgender people. And we're gonna give you the numbers in a second, but you know what this also does? It divides the country, it directs hatred and bigotry toward one group of people in this country. It leads to the types of conversations that we're about to have, where we break down how many mass shootings are committed by straight white males and how many are committed by transgender people. I'm sick of having these discussions.
Yeah.
Okay, by the way, you wanted to put them in a designated terror list or something? If you're on the terrorist watch list in America, you can still legally buy guns. Let that sink in for a second. Anyway, Cenk, go ahead.
Yeah, so lots of things here. First of all, obvious discrimination. So if you're in favor of this, you don't believe in equality, period. And you can say, hey, I have good reasons. If you're a radical right, so well, I really don't like those people. I just think that they're all mentally ill. Brother, I mean, if you're a fascist, I can make that same argument about you, which is gonna be point number 2 in a second, okay? But no, but the argument you can't make is, I wanna treat everyone equally. You're not. You're saying these group of people should have less rights, okay? Argument number 2 is related. Be careful what you wish for if you're a right winger. Because once you ban one group of people from owning guns, well, you just opened that door. Now we could ban other groups of people from owning guns, okay?
Yeah.
And we could do different things like, well, you're doing it based on identity, trans, right? We could do it based on that, white males, right wingers, etc. You could say, mentally ill. Well, I think a lot of you are mentally ill. Okay, boom, here we go, open another door. They're domestic terrorists. Well, I think that there's right-wing domestic terrorists, opened another door.
Yeah.
So if you're in favor of the Second Amendment, this is actually a disaster for you.
And
you actually should, this is a shoehorn thing where the left is really bothered by discrimination against anyone, including trans people, and the right, this is opening the door big time to taking your guns away.
So I saw a few people commenting about this on social media pundits, that type of stuff. And they were arguing, this is a genius ploy by Donald Trump to get the left to defend gun rights. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but over the last few years, I've been pretty defensive about gun rights. I believe in the Second Amendment. We can have a conversation about some regulations. I think a federal background check is important. I think we should have that. But I think that some elements of the left do go too far in wanting to ban guns. It is a constitutional right. We should have that constitutional right. Now, it would be interesting to see those who are in favor of banning guns overall, coming out to say that, coming out to defend gun rights specifically because trans people are being targeted. I don't want anyone targeted because of their identity. I don't care if they're trans, I don't care if they're white males, I don't care if they're from the planet, Mars. It doesn't matter. If we have that constitutional right, it should apply to everyone. Now, if we want to have a conversation about certain mental health conditions that would make one more of a risk if they were to obtain guns, let's have that conversation. But to boil it down to one specific group, in this case, transgender people, is pretty sick. And I see what they're doing here. This is also a ploy to continue tearing the country apart. Make no mistake about it. That's what this is about.
Yeah, so that's what the second thing I was gonna get to. First of all, once you start characterizing people as domestic terrorists, we're off to the races, right? So look, there's an argument to be made when they do a political manifesto and they say, okay, here, I'm going to kill all these black people in the church. Or if you found someone in any category, trans, Muslim, whatever, and they're like, oh, I mean to kill all straight people or all white people or Christians, whatever, right? Okay, you can make an argument. But the whole category, like anyone who by definition has done some violent act and is a trans person is a terrorist, that's crazy talk, right? Because now we're just gonna label each other terrorists back and forth. When a Democrat gets in office, all the right wings are terrorists. And remember when there was a report out from the FBI going, no, we're actually worried about domestic terrorism because they are organizing as groups, they are armed, and they are saying they are going to do violence, right? That's when the right wing was like, how dare you? You shouldn't call any Americans terrorists. Now they're like, oh yeah, sure, let's do it to trans people. So again, brother, be careful the door you're opening. I thought you said you didn't want anybody to tread on you.
By the way, let me also just be clear. Look, this story just broke. So I'm gonna wait to see like a more comprehensive reaction from conservatives and the right. Initially though, I did see a lot of Second Amendment defenders coming out and saying exactly what you're saying, that this is dangerous. And credit to them because they can see that this does in fact open the door to the very thing that they want to prevent.
So guys, the political spectrum is starting to shatter, right? And I love it, I'm here for it. I would even, people have argued that I'm part of that and I'm very proud of that. Because look, what do we care about whether if you're on the left, right, Democrat, Republican? Do you agree with this thing or do you not agree with this thing? Okay, and if you're a right winger who says on the grounds of the Second Amendment, I do not agree with this thing, I think it is wrong. Okay, great, fantastic, right? We agree. This is not a thing that you should do. And I want you to note, by the way, whether you're on the right or left, here we are again in culture wars.
I know, that's why I think this is intentional. This is intentionally done to just get your eye off the ball and just fight each other, to be honest with you.
Yeah, because it's gonna force us to give you stats about white males and how they could do the overwhelming majority of shootings. Just to point out the hypocrisy that it's not trans people doing most of these shootings, that's nuts, right? But then, of course, like if you fall fully into that trap, then you argue for months and years about who's more guilty, white males or trans people. Okay, you're right in the thick of the culture wars then, and they've got you perfectly distracted and exactly where they want you to continue the robbery.
Listen, the horrific shooting that happened at that Catholic church last week. It was last week, right? Yes. Okay, that shooter was obviously, based on the evidence we've seen already, deranged, mentally ill. There were all sorts of problems with that individual, especially with what was scrawled across magazines and stuff. Hated pretty much every group you can imagine, Latinos, Jewish people, it doesn't matter. Muslims, everyone, okay? So this person clearly needed mental health care, like needed help. There was something wrong with this person. I say that because if you are part of the federal government and you are genuinely concerned about your fellow Americans, you are worried about what is happening with shootings in this country, you would actually look for actual serious solutions. You would try to figure out, okay, what is the through line when it comes to these mass shootings? Well, a lot of these mass shooters have serious mental health issues. And rather than just talking about it every once in a while to prevent the conversation about possible gun control, how about these politicians who really have no interest in serving us, in looking out for us, have no interest in figuring out what's in the best interest of the American people. What they do is they throw red meat, fight each other. Go ahead, plebes, go ahead, fight each other. And we're not gonna do anything to allocate funding for mental health care. Oh, you're drowning in debt? Sorry. We're gonna help our private equity buddies snatch up all of the remaining residential real estate in the middle of a housing crisis. Our federal government is just garbage. Okay, Congress is useless. I don't even know what Trump is up to. It's complete and utter chaos. He's all over the place when it comes to his policies. He's talking about how much he wants peace, and then he is essentially starting a war with Venezuela, a literal hot war with Venezuela. What are we doing here? Don't get distracted by the red meat, okay? Your enemy is not your fellow American, regardless of what their identity is. Your enemy at this point are the politicians who are pitting you against your fellow Americans. That's what's happening right now.
Yeah.
Anyway, do you want me to get into the details?
Just give us one or two facts so people understand the context of who's actually doing most of the shootings.
And look, as I give you the stats and the details, I just want to preface this by saying, I am not in favor of banning guns for anyone based on their identity, whether we're talking about straight white males or transgender people, okay? Now, is there an epidemic of trans shooters or is trans ideology a national emergency? Well, there are some researchers who have looked into this, including Michael Jensen, the research director at the National Consortium for the Study of Terrorism and Responses to Terrorism. This individual says no. Jensen's research has identified more than 1,000 mass casualty plots where the perpetrator clearly intended to kill or injure as many people as possible since the start of 2023. You can count on less than one hand how many of those were perpetrated by a transgender individual, he said. And we'll also take a moment to note that between 2004 and 2014, suspected terrorists attempted to purchase guns from American dealers at least 2,233 times. Yeah, I mean, look, and 2,043 of those cases, 91% of the time they succeeded. Because it is very easy to purchase guns. Like as we've talked about on this show, like one of the things that I do have a little bit of a problem with is that you can go to a gun show, you can buy a gun from the back of someone's truck without going through a background check. I'm not trying to be super restrictive. I just want to make sure that people who are bad guys aren't able to just legally buy as many guns as they want. Now, as for the demographics of mass shooters, according to data dating back all the way to 2006, most mass shooters and accused shooters are either white, 38%, or black, 29%, followed by Hispanic or Latino, 14%, Asian, Pacific Islander, 5%, and Native American, 1%. The remaining 10% are of another race or their race is not available. Furthermore, only 16 of the 492 deadliest mass shootings in the United States, just 3%, are known or suspected to have been committed by a woman acting alone.
Yeah, so if we wanted to ban people based on their proclivity to commit mass shootings, the number one group we would ban is males. Forget race, forget gender, gender identity, whatever, males, okay? Now, should we ban all males from having guns? Well, I'm for significant gun control, so don't get me started, okay? And I wouldn't keep it to males, I'd keep it to everyone. But my guess is the majority of the country will say, oh, hell no, that makes no sense. So why are you targeting the 3% instead of the 97%? That doesn't make any sense at all. And so guys, look, we've been honest from day one on all these issues, and we've drawn the line where honestly the great majority of Americans have, but almost no one on the left or right has, which is, we think that there's issues with transports, and we think that you've got to be careful with surgery before 18, et cetera. Not careful, you shouldn't do it before 18. All these things that, as it turns out, the polling indicates about where 80% of the country is. But we're also where 80% of the country is when you start taking away rights from transgender Americans, right? So you can't take rights away when it comes to whether you treat them differently in the military, whether you treat them differently when it comes to their constitutional rights. And this is the right wing would certainly agree, this is a core constitutional right.
Do you love this country and what it's supposed to stand for, or do you not? Do you believe in our Constitution or do you not? Because if you think that certain people should be, or our constitutional rights don't apply to certain people just simply based on their identity, then you don't believe in America and you don't love our Constitution.
Yeah, and last point goes to one of our members, Wang Jun on TYT.com. Alternative headline, DOJ considers taking away trans people's ability to defend themselves from violent hate crimes. And
that's a really good point, actually.
And isn't it interesting? And that's why I love our audience. And I love that you guys are part of the show and smartest audience in the country. And because when you frame it that way, it makes you realize, oh, there is two different ways to frame the same story, isn't it? And it's interesting the choices that people make, right? When it applies to one group of people, they go with a different headline. Another group of people, wait a minute, 100% opposite headline. So in this case, yes, you could be talking about taking away the right of trans Americans to defend themselves, period. And that's framing that is not good for the DOJ in this ridiculous effort to target our fellow Americans. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets its wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.